All right, let's talk about auth. So, by the end of this lesson, I hope that you will be able to verify users' identity. So last time we talked about signing up, allowing users to create accounts. As a refresher, you have a sign-up form. You send over a username and password. We hash their password. They store their username and their hash password in the database. And that's creating a user. Questions about that? I was about to make you do it in a second, so get them out now if you forgot how. What's hashing? Anyone?
Hashing is when you end up taking like a password that someone types in, change it into something else that can't be completely, can't go back.
Can't go back. It's one way. Cat becomes 4. 4 would go backwards into so many things, it's kind of impractical. So now there's other things that will also hash to 4, but in a real hashing algorithm, we're relying on the wild unlikelihood of that happening in any kind of meaningful way. I don't think we talked about this last time, but hashes get used all over the place. They're not just for security. They're also really good as unique identifiers. So if I go into a Git repo, for example, cool, so this is a Git repo. If I look at the Git log, hey, these kind of look like hashes. So what they do is they take all of the changes that you made in that commit and then hash the combined changes to generate that ID. And then that ends up being a unique ID. So if I want to go roll back to Max's standardizing git ignore shit, F8B7, git checkout F8B7. Cool. And so now I'm on that version of the app. Cool. Any other questions about allowing users to sign up, hashing, any of that kind of stuff? Yeah, Miriam.
Is that what Bcrypt is doing?
Yep.
So if you wanted to add a salt or pepper to that, would you not be able to use Bcrypt?
Bcrypt does all that for you automatically.
Okay.
Correct. You can stop it from doing that, but by default it'll salt your hashes. Cool, what else? It'll also automatically generate your salt. You can give it your own salt if for whatever reason you didn't trust Bcrypt's salting thing. Actually, quick tangent that, oh shit, am I losing don't have my pen here? I'm gonna have to go get that. But quick question about, what was I just talking about? Randomly generated salts. So, have you come across the term pseudo-random number before? What's a pseudo-random number?
Computers are not good at making random numbers, but they can make kind of random numbers.
Exactly.
You want to control that a little bit. Exactly.
So, true randomness is not a thing that a computer is capable of doing. So, it's like, hey, it's beeps and boops, it's instructions, right? Make something up is not like part of the like domain that a computer can do. It can do something that sort of seems like that though, but it does those off of like tables. So you'll have these big tables, and then maybe based on the like last digit of the millisecond you're currently on, it picks some random place in the table and then goes 4 more, because last time it went 3 more, and has some kind of algorithm for how it gets a random number. But it's not actually random, it's very much calculated. So if you didn't trust that, because those random tables, like, those are made by people, and they might have patterns in them that could be exploitable. So you say, I don't trust bcrypt's built-in thing. I use my own pseudo-random number generator. So there you go. Neat. So what I'm going to ask you to do right this now, new app. Don't look at your notes if you don't have to. Try to get sign up going. Let's do this around a noun. What's a noun we're going to work with today?
Game.
Game, cool. So this is a video game arcade. That's the name of your app. And start user sign up for it. Go! I'm going to go find my pen.
What was our base object? Game? Or what?
Yeah. Video game, arcade.
give us another 2 minutes. All right, eyes up here. So I'm going to do it from scratch. If there are pieces of yours that weren't quite working, compare them to mine. Elsewise, enjoy the show. So let's see, let's close all this crap out. All right, so I'm going to Rails new -- API. If you didn't do the -- API, you're going to have a bad time. Video game arcade. So scaffolds out the app for me. Rails S. I'm going Rails S about port 8500. Cool. And I'm going to generate a model for a user. I'm going to generate a controller for users. And then I'm going to make sure that I have a route. Resources, users, solamente. Create. And then over in that controller, make a create action that will user.create with username. Oh, sorry, Miriam. I'll make sure I strong param this.
It's better looking.
Params require user permit username and password. Say user params and then render
Are these supposed to be brackets like that?
like an array. I think it's fine either way.
Okay.
It'll bark at. It'll give me a compiler if it's not right. But so that's actually an interesting point. This is like almost any function that takes an array, you can either pass in an array or you could pass in each individual item. There's some pretty easy ways in most languages to move back and forth between those. When given the option, I generally prefer to pass in an array because one argument is easier for a compiler to optimize for than a variadic number of arguments. But that's just me. Render JSON. User. All right, so, and then over in migration land, we'll say t.string username, t.string password digest. Over in the model for that, has secure password. And if I were to forget what the exact phrasing on that is, has secure password, why, I could go over to the gem file and uncomment out bcrypt. It says uses active record, has secure password. It's right there for me. But since I added a new dependency, I need to stop my server and restart it. Oops. After I bundle install. Cool. And now should be able to go to Postman, send a post request to users with this kind of information, send it over, and it should, oh, I need to migrate. Rails DB migrate. And it should send me a 500 error. I'm kidding. It should work. All right, and there we go. I created a user, hashed the password, saved it. Booyah, achieved. Questions about any part of this? All right, part the second. Verifying user's identity. There are 3 steps to this. First, we need to look up the user. Then we're going to compare a hashed version of the password they sent us with the hash password that we've saved. And assuming all that checks out, we are going to sign a JOT. And yes, that's how you pronounce that. JWT, I didn't invent it. It's pronounced JOT. A JOT is a token. So these first 2 steps are actually pretty easy. How would we look up a user? So this starts the same way. They give us a username and a password. Say client. They send us username and password over HTTP. Gets over to the server. So I have these 2 pieces of information. How do I find the user? What was that? So I have their username and password. Expand. How do I use that to find the user on the server? Find by. Because find is the ID. Find by lets me use whatever I want. So I can say, all right, does the person who has to have this username have this password? Cool, so I find their user with find by. And if I don't find them, what does that mean?
They don't have an account?
Yep. Bad username, basically. Cool, so then I need to check their password. Now, checking their password, I'd mentioned this yesterday. You're not gonna use bcrypt to hash their password and then actually do a double equals to compare, because we need to take into account the salt. We might have something with different numbers of hashing rounds. So bcrypt actually gives us a method called .authenticate that's on every user model that uses has secure password. So you do .authenticate, and then you give the raw password, pass that into it, and it returns true if it's a match, false otherwise. Pretty dope. Okay, so that takes care of our first two steps. And then our third step is going to be to encode and sign a JOT. So what we're going to do is take some stuff from that user object, and we're going to put it in a token. We'll say like make token. And then that token is what we're going to send back to the client. So these tokens, we go to good old jot.io, jwt.io. This is what a jot looks like. Jots have three parts to it. They have a header, they have a payload, and they have a signature. So these are, they kind of look like hashes, right? They're not hashes. They are in encoding. Let's talk about encoding. Three kind of related but very different ideas. Encoding, encrypting, and hashing. We know what hashing is. Think about how you would define it. I'm going to call on somebody. Sam, what's hashing?
Keeping values of each thing that is in, changing it into something else that you no longer can access your value.
Yep. Mix it all up, doesn't go backwards. Any guesses what encryption is? Goes backwards. Now, there's another curious property of encryption. So we'll say this is one way. This is two way. Another curious property of encryption, though, is that we want it to be relatively easy to do one direction and relatively difficult to do the other direction. And there's a really interesting property of numbers that sort of supports this. And it's this. Calculating that is stupid easy to do. Calculating this is actually significantly harder to do. This, we just multiply it together. Not hard. There's no like simple rule of thumb for square roots that works the same way. So, without getting too much into the details, they're on my wiki if you're curious. Encryption is supposed to be very easy one direction, very difficult the other, unless you know some piece of it. And what those happen to be is absolutely enormous prime numbers. And there's two of them, and it's pretty easy to reverse the calculation if you know what one of them is already. And that's what a key is. So, all right, so we'll say this is two-way asymmetrical. Easier to do one way than it is the other way. Any guesses what encoding is?
Symmetrical.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Two-way symmetrical. So with an encoding, you're generally not trying to keep anything secret. You're either trying to obfuscate it, maybe, or in the case of JOTs, you're just trying to make them small. So this is what's referred to as base 64 encoded. What's base 64? It's kind of like an algorithm. Not exactly, though. What's base 10? Yep, that's our like regular human counting system. What's base 2?
Binary.
There you go. Base 16 is hexadecimal. So that's where we go. That's like our CSS color values. We go 1 through 9 and then A through F. Base 64 is all the lowercase letters, all the uppercase letters, all the numbers, underscore, and I think dash. It's base 64. So the cool thing about that is something that's base 64 encoded, we can do a really dense amount of information in one character. Pretty cool. So that matters on the web because we're always trying to make something we're sending over the web as small as possible. So we base 64 encode it, and we've scrunched it the fuck up. Another common use of base 64 is images. Have you ever seen something like in a URL that starts encoding base 64 and then a whole bunch of characters that look like this? That's the binary for that image represented in base 64. So instead of a shit ton of ones and zeros, you get significantly less information in base 64. And then we can convert this back over to binary on our computer. But the thing we send over the network, teeny tiny. All right, so we have, we're going to encode some information. So important thing here, this isn't a secret. Any jot, you can paste it in and just see what's in it. It's not supposed to be secret. But we're going to put this stuff from our user in this payload. And then when somebody presents their jot to us in step 3, we don't have to ask for their username and password again because they have this token. That token is a symbol of I logged in. I passed the checkpoint. What's the problem with that? Why might that not work? What potential for abuse is there? I'm not just going to give it to you.
Can somebody else use your token?
Yep. Anybody who has the tokens logged in. Zoinks. What else? This says that I'm John Doe. This is not a secret. It's easy to change this. Base 64 encode it again. Send it over. What's the problem? I can change this to Jane Doe. What then? Now I can log in as Jane Doe. Uh-oh. That's not good. So that's where the signature comes in. The signature is, wait for it, a hash. We take this stuff, we hash it, and we get this. And this was hashed with like some secret ingredient that I have. So if you change this to Jane Doe, the hashes don't match. So I know to not trust the token. Sick. All right, enough fucking theory. Let's get hands on. So we're gonna do this. I'm gonna do it. You're gonna watch. You can take notes if you want. And then you're gonna do it, and we're gonna review. Yeah. All right. So with this app, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna commit here, so that we can get back to this if I screw up. So I'll say allows user sign up. All right. And for our next one, I need some kind of token issuing thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a new route. This one is going to accept post requests to login. And it's going to send those requests to an authentication controllers. Authentication controllers login action. You haven't seen that syntax in a hot minute? Method, path, controller, action. So then I need to make a authentication controller. I'm going to Rails G controller authentication. And I'm going to make a login action. And let's do it longhand to make sure we understand what we're doing. So I take in a username and a password. Now let's look at the steps. I'm trying to find the user and then authenticate who they are. Talk me through how I'm going to find the user. Sure. So that user find by, and then what do I put in here? Yeah, I pulled it out already, but yeah, all right. So what happens if it doesn't find a user? What do I get back from this if there isn't a user? Not an error message. Nope. I mean, what is Ruby going to give me back? Or Rails, I guess. Nil. Ooh, that sounds like something I can do like truthy falsy sort of thing with. So I can say if not user, then I want to render status 401. Oops. Say unauthorized. That user didn't come back. Unauthorized request. Cool. Literally, step one. That's all of it. Next one, I need to authenticate the user. All right, so in this else block, there is a user. So if @user.authenticate, that was something we got with has secure password, magic method. And I pass in the password they gave me. Actually, I'm going to do the same kind of negative thing. The same thing. It doesn't match. They're unauthorized. And if they are a match, then I render JSON token my awesome token. Let's see if we can get this far. So if I did all that right, I made a user with A and A. So I should be able to post to login with that same thing and get back my awesome token. And if I give it the wrong password, I should get 401 unauthorized. If I give it the right password but the wrong username, 401 unauthorized. If I give it the right username, it makes it through that logic. Questions about any of this so far?
Yeah, can we throw on a screen share? or as opposed
Oh,
to
holy
just your
shit.
educational
You,
face?
You've just been. You could have
Things
said
so
something
far
earlier,
I've,
baby.
I've already got, so.
All right, all right.
Yeah. A.
Oops, that's not the entire thing, though. Hang on. All right, I'm going to try to get all this in view. I don't know why it's not showing the whole thing. Other questions about anything you see here? Yeah, pretty straightforward shit, right? So let's do this last step. So we're going to use the Jot library. So I'm going to look up Jot, Rails, Gem. I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go to the docs for it. All right, so I need to gem install JWT. Gem install JWT. Sickness. Or, nope. Bundle add. Gem install makes it available like globally on my computer. I want to make it a dependency of the project, so I'll bundle add JWT. Cool. So now to use it, I need to require it. Nice. And then it's, let's see, where's the signed example? Here we go. So we're going to do jot encode some payload and then some secret. That's how we sign it. So I'll say token equals, first, you get a secret that's built into Rails that you can use for things like this. And you get to that with Rails application secret key base. Right, Jared?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so that's my secret. My token will be JWT, capital letters, encode, and we're going to encode something like user ID is @user.id, username is @user.username, and I'm going to give it my secret. And then pro tip, it actually does this. No, actually, that is that one way with that. All right, never mind. So then we have this token. I'm going to swap it out here. And since I added a dependency, I need to restart that. Now let's see what Postman does. Gives me 500. Dope. Some syntax error. I was probably trying to be too clever with something. All right, how you like me now? There we go. Weird. That's a jot. So if I take this jot and plug that into the jwt.io site, user ID 1, username A. The token's right. All right, here it is. We look up a user. If we can't find them, wrong username. Then we check to see the password hashes the same thing. If it doesn't, they're unauthorized. Elsewise, we get some secret, we encode a token with it, and send it back to the user. Questions? Yep. All we did in the routes, when we make a post request to login, send to this authentication controller's login action. What else?
I get an error with the, for the nil class, upgrade on params at user username.
Up here. So are you sending top level key that says user? Weird. Are you
Oh, wait,
sending
user and username and
Yep.
password?
Yep.
That's probably what I did wrong.
other questions? Cool, your turn. So I'm gonna leave this up on the screen. Use it if you have to. Otherwise, see what you can recall off the dome. Go.
They just not test it right. Usually you can test it in the params inside of the body. But we could test it in the body.
No, it's because you're saying it's query parameters. You want to send it as JSON.
It's been closed, right?
Correct.
Does it just need any string there?
Nope. Needs another object.
That's what it did. Okay. And then this is username, whatever the username is, and password, whatever.
There you go. And then clear out your query string.
Cool,
Also.
thank you.
Yep. You are posting users. What do you need to be posting to? That's the controller. Was the route that I used.
No, I didn't do that, but I did do that before it worked.
It's still a apply button at the top of that. No, inside the login. Above that, 'cause it's arrowing out the first one. Good. Fire that off. And let's go down to this here. Type parameters. Ah. Is this is a JSON string?
No, that's not right.
It's not parsing it. So,
Yeah, no, I just.
go back over to
It's
post
figuring out
manager.
exactly this time.
So the headers. Yeah, that's why. Uncheck that. Yeah. In the future, you don't have to kill your server. You just do control D. Move past the by plugin.
I was like, I don't know how to do it wrong. It's because I can do, the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you test it? Do you do a post?
You make a post request to log in.
Okay, login.
Like so. You should get a token back if you did it right. It's not authentication. Good. Let's see your letter. When you send a post, the login, send the authentication controllers.
Oh, no, you don't have to do that. No, no.
Authentications controller. Yeah, so if you go to Rails. Syntax. I'm back on the screen. I'm very close.
Maybe we switch the algorithm. For no reason with the HS.
That was fine.
Observer.
If, for us, let's say you have a security department that mandates everybody in the company to do algorithm. That would be time to change it. Okay. Security vulnerabilities, discover those algorithms like tomorrow. So, you're using the older version of it, so you have to override the default. You want to use something more secure, but you're okay with the trade-off of it running slower.
by. Get rid of that. And that applies, this thing.
Well, I did that.
These are headers. These are headers.
I just wanted to see something else with the token memory.
So you're trying to create a user?
Yeah, I just was like going back to the,
Okay.
yeah, and then, oh, and that's the other here, it's not on.
Okay, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Those are the response headers.
Yeah, I did it like 2 minutes ago, and then
Can I go to body?
I changed off.
Okay, let me see your, user. Yes. Oh, yeah, you should. Back over to before. Cool. So, I want you to kill your server, restart it. Cool, and then back over to Postman. And, let's just make a new tab. There's one of these sometimes. Good. And you are hosting on 3,000, 8,500 or 9,000, whatever. Yeah, there it is. You want to go to raw. And JSON. Okay. So now you're going to just change that to login. Do it right. Do it right.
Oh, did I spell it wrong?
It's a better problem. Alright, who's having a hard time? Need some help? Gotcha. Okay, let me see your control. Correct.
Stupid combo.
I know, right?
Okay, now change back to.
I thought about the pros and thought about the cons, and then decided that I didn't care, and I stopped the show.
Shoot, I didn't see let me see your, go back to your, control.
Hey, you got a token. All right, who else having a hard time? Got it? All right. We can allow users to sign up. We can verify that they are who they say they are, and we give them a little button that says that, yep, I checked you out once before. Here's your papers.
How does the user hold on to that token?
Great question. Local storage.
Got it.
So in Durable script, you're going to, let's say I did my login page.js. I would probably do something like fetch login URL and I would give it method post and headers content type application JSON body is JSON.stringify username A, password A, and then couple things here. So instead of parsing the thing right away, I can say something like if not response.ok. That checks like the response SAS code. Then maybe I do something like show an error message, else return response.json. And then with that response that I get back, I could do something like local storage set item token to response.token. And now anywhere in my app, if I want to pull out that token, for example, to send as a authorization header and some request I'm making down the road, I can get that with local storage.getItem token. And that survives refreshes, survives navigation, survives lots of things. It's a cockroach. Other questions about step 2 of authentication? Yeah, Miriam.
Especially back on what you were just doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you, yeah, so in my case, like, I have a game that refreshes the whole page, which is super annoying at this point. Like,
Mhm.
if I can't fix that, the user needs to stay logged in. So if it refreshes that, if I do local storage over the session storage, that will keep the user logged in. And it'll keep them logged in until they press the log out button.
Logging out is just a matter of getting rid of this. You do remove item token, and now you are logged out.
What's the point of doing local storage if it's not, if it can be less than
No, not necessarily. Like, other tabs or anything can't see your local storage. Local storage is per domain. And by domain, we mean subdomain, domain, protocol, and port. All 4 of those have to match to have access to local storage. What else? Yeah.
In my authentication controller, I forgot to write in required dot and
Mm-hmm.
so,
I don't know. Maybe there's some other fucking thing that has it required. This is kind of like the downside of Rails and opinionated frameworks. I don't know. Maybe it's because it was listed in your gem file and it has something that just auto requires all those things. Ew. Yeah.
Invalid hash. Let me see your report. Good. Unauthorized is logo on there. AUT. Back to. And then, U. With TBH. There you go. Yeah.
Will this
Maybe. Try now. Let me see your recording. Oh, cool. Let me see the actual results. Alright. Make a new tab. It's happened a couple times lately where it's like remembering earlier requests you made. Type all this stuff out again and see if it still does it.
Any other questions about Auth? Steps 1 or steps 2?
Because we're not having classes in the afternoon, would you want to do part 3?
No. Just gotta sleep on it. Gotta let it soak in. We'll do it tomorrow.
But I watched all the videos.
Well, like, it's the same fucking lesson, Miriam. Just watch number 3.
Okay.
That's exactly what we're gonna do tomorrow.
I need the confidence boost now.
Right.
It's confusing because you like write the controller the way that we just did, but then in like one of the videos you go back and change it and like copy and paste it into like the application controller.
All right, you can complain all about it tomorrow.
Just want clarification.
Other questions? All right, thank you. Thanks, Sean. All right, we'll get started on unit testing in a sec. All right. Then, make anything better? All right. Let's see. Line 4. Let me see line 4. Okay, cool. Let me see. Save. Okay,
like that. Hey, got an unauthorized, that's good. So that means either the user wasn't found or the password didn't match. So here's the easiest way to do this, just change this to log, users. Okay, send it. Cool, got it back. Now change that back to log. Send it. There you go. Beautiful. All right, we're gonna start Mocha in a minute.